There we go. We're going.
All right.
Welcome back to the Friends Without Benefits podcast. Dude, I am so stoked to have my buddy out here, Travis Harless. Just moved out here from Bakersfield, right?
Yeah, Bakersfield, California.
Dude, welcome. So tell us a little bit about yourself and, so crowd can get to know you.
Yeah, I'm from Bakersfield, California. Lived there for 41 years. I was a cop out there for a little over 18 years, and just got fed up with the way things were going in California. So my wife was really kind of the driving factor behind that. You went to the academy with her.
Mm-hmm.
We decided we have younger kids, 3 kids, 1 adult, two young ones, and decided we wanted to not raise the young ones in California, and so
Right.
we fled the People's Republic of California and we moved to America, here in Texas in the DFW area.
Dude, I will say the grass is definitely greener on the other side. When we left, like gas prices were like, I want to say $3 a gallon. We left in 2020, like right as COVID was kicking off. And I mean, they had come down a little bit, but when I crossed into Texas,
Yeah.
it was like 99 cents a gallon.
Yeah.
And I was so stoked. I said, man, I tell you, I think this is probably the best move we made. But we did the same thing because our kids, I mean, I have they're 7 and 10 right now, but when we left, they were way younger. We just decided it's not the place to raise the kids for us. It was just kind of not really what we wanted to do.
No, yeah, not at all. And it's just talking about gas prices. So I've made 4 trips, like driving trips, 3 U-Haul trips, and drove 1 car. And when you get just east of Barstow, and you're leaving Bakersfield, which Barstow's like 2 hours east of Bakersfield, you get east of Barstow, it's like $7.75 for unleaded. $7.75.
Jesus.
Yeah. So if you're driving a fully loaded U-Haul that gets like 8 miles a gallon, it's like that's like more than $1 a mile.
Yeah. So did you rent like a U-Haul to do that?
I've actually rented 3 U-Hauls.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
it took 3 trips to get all of our stuff out here.
So did you end up bringing them back to California too? Because I've heard that once the U-Haul leaves there, they charge you so much more if you're not bringing it back.
Yeah, like going out of California is a lot more expensive because everybody's fleeing. So all the U-Hauls are leaving, going east. But if you're driving into California, the price is a lot cheaper. So
Yeah.
no, we didn't keep them. I drove 1 out in February, and then another one in the end of May, and then another one out in June.
Yeah.
And just dropped them off and left them here.
Sure. So how have you kind of enjoyed the North Texas area kind of comparatively? I mean, you've only been here now for a short period of time.
Yeah, I've been here about 5 months. Got here February.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot nicer here. It's you get somewhere you don't realize how bad something is, like if you're real close to it.
Yeah.
And so like I'm from Bakersfield. I lived there my whole life. And then I was a cop there, and you don't realize, like I said, how bad it is until you leave. And now every time I go back just for like a day or 2, I got something to take care of, and I drive around, I'm like, oh God, this place is terrible. You just get used to a level of just how things have degraded that are not degraded here.
Sure.
When you drive around out here, there's no graffiti. There's not like drug addicted, mentally ill people just naked doing kung fu in the center median. Like that doesn't happen. But like there, it's just common. Like and people are almost just you get so used to it, you don't even notice.
I think it's partially also because Bakersfield, being that it is such a big city, but it's really not surrounded by a whole lot of other areas that aren't considered part of the city.
Mhm.
Now, if you go out here to Dallas, you're going to still see some of that same stuff.
Yeah.
It isn't going to be massively different, but there's so much suburbs and the outskirts of Dallas that even though those areas are city, it's just so much nicer. I think when we first moved here, I didn't see a homeless person for 7 months. And that was living in Rockwall and driving to the academy, which actually because of COVID, was started out all the way out in Frisco.
Mhm,
So I was making the drive. It's an hour and 15, hour and 30-minute drive, going some back roads, but through the towns, really going through Allen, passing through McKinney, going through into Frisco. Not one homeless person
mhm.
in over 6 months. And I was like,
Yeah,
when I saw somebody for the first time, I was like, oh, maybe this place is a little bit more regular, but realistically, it's not.
yeah. You say homeless person, it's funny, people don't understand what you're talking about, that we don't have the language to explain what is really happening.
Mhm.
So when I was a kid, like a homeless person, like a bum or a homeless guy, you would think of like somebody living like sleeping behind a dumpster, behind some business somewhere, like drinking. He's got like a maybe a drug or alcohol problem, but he kind of keeps to himself
Right.
and maybe comes out and panhandles every once in a while, but for the most part is just out of sight, out of mind.
Sure.
That's not what we have in California. Like, that's what there's people like that out here in Texas. When I talk to people at the agency I work at now, and they're like, "Oh, we have this, this homeless problem," and I just kind of chuckle. It's like, okay, like you have like just a couple of regular bums,
Yeah.
but like that's not what is happening in California. In California, there's tent cities that are full of people that have been smoking methamphetamine for every single day for 12 years
Right.
when Prop 47 passed in 2014, and they have gone insane, and there's this again, a lot of them are harmless, like they're not dangerous, but a lot of them actually are very dangerous,
Right.
and they commit all sorts of other crimes besides just like being high in public.
Right.
They're stealing things or breaking things, and they're committing violent crimes, and they're just kind of loose everywhere.
Sure.
And so, when we say homeless or bum, like, it doesn't really encapsulate, like, what I'm actually talking about. Like,
Right.
it's not the guy drinking the 40 behind, behind the dumpster.
Yeah, who literally just doesn't have a home,
Yeah.
but the guy who's has really a mental health it's a mental health crisis out there, and I think it's because of the drugs. I mean,
Yeah,
it's a
it is because of the drugs. There's all this argument that happens, "Oh, is it a drug crisis or is it a mental health crisis?" And it's like a chicken or an egg problem. So for those who don't know, Prop 47, which passed in California in 2014, it turned hard drugs like methamphetamine, heroin, cocaine, those used to be felonies.
Mhm.
So you would get if you got caught with one of those substances, you would actually get a felony charge and go to jail. And when Prop 47 passed, they turned them from the felony to a non-bookable misdemeanor, meaning if you got caught with methamphetamine, you wouldn't go to jail, you would just get a ticket.
Right.
So we would seize your methamphetamine, we'd write you a ticket, and we hand it to you, and then you'd go on your way and just buy more meth. And and the idea behind it, like, I don't even fully disagree with, which was they didn't wanna criminalize addiction. So you
Uh-huh.
think about, like, if you're a person who has a drug problem and you're just addicted to whatever the substance is, but you're not bothering anyone else, you're not, like, hurting anyone or breaking things or stealing things, like, does it really affect the rest of society if, you just kind of quietly are using your drug? And I would
Right.
say, no, it doesn't. And I agree, you shouldn't be putting those people in the same place where you're housing, like, people that are committing, like, armed robbery,
Right.
right? Like, those are different problems. There should
It's
be a different solution. And so the system before was definitely not perfect, I agree. But the benefit to the system before was if a person did have a drug problem, there would be these times they would get caught, they would get arrested, they'd go to jail, they'd spend a few weeks in county, they'd, plea out to some sort of probation, they'd have to do some program, they'd get released, and then they'd have an opportunity to go through a drug program, which, 99% of the time they would fail and relapse and whatever. But at least there were these breaks in their use. So if you're a
Right.
drug addict who smokes meth, you would kind of go off the rails. You'd get caught by the police, you'd get arrested, and you have a couple of weeks off where you'd have regular sleep, you'd eat regular meals, and you would be sober for a regular amount of time.
Yeah, you're essentially getting at least a period of detox that
Exactly.
works, and
100%. And then
now
now,
it's not.
yeah, and now that since Prop 47 passed, has been 12 years, those that doesn't exist anymore. So instead of you getting that couple week long break and a opportunity to go to some drug program, you just get a ticket if they even do anything with it at all at this
Mhm.
point, because a lot, they're not. Even if the worst case scenario, you get written or you get a ticket, you get released, and then you just go back to smoking meth. And so instead of having breaks every once in a while, you have people that have smoked it every day for 12 years.
Mhm.
And if you smoke meth every day for 12 years, you go insane. Like
Right.
you are schizophrenic now.
It is melting your brain for
Yeah.
sure.
And so they're like, "Oh, it's a mental health problem." It's like, okay, becomes a mental health problem, but the underlying cause is a drug problem
Right.
that we as the state, as society, as the government, we have an obligation to step in, like when you're destroying yourself and prevent you from destroying yourself, and also to prevent you from becoming the kind of person who destroys other things for other people.
Right.
And 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 California has completely abdicated that responsibility.
Yeah, and I feel like just the problem got so substantially worse when because you weren't arresting them, then the streets have just absolutely opened the floodgates. I mean, when I left in 2020, so 2019, 2020, I was on the impact team.
Mhm.
So impact team is basically homeless. It's the homeless task force is what I'm going to call it
Yep.
now because you're that's all we're contacting all day every day. And I kind of almost felt like it was a bit of a mundane job. You're going there, you're
Mhm.
contacting them, you're running them, finding out they have a warrant, writing them their citation and
Mhm.
say, "Hey, please show up for court next month." And it just never they never do.
They don't go, and then 3 weeks later, they have another warrant.
Right. And so it just it got worse and worse, and that's why we left. But when I came here, Plano made me they didn't make me go through another academy, but they did.
Mhm.
So they said, "Hey, if you're gonna come out right now, we can get you in on this academy, or you can wait out until, like, October, you can try and test, and then, if you pass the test, you're good. You can just kinda come on as a lateral,"
Mhm.
which I was gonna get lateral anyway. So I was like, "Okay, you know what? I'm trying to get out of here as fast as possible." I came here, and I remember we're doing scenarios, and they get the homeless like, "Oh, hey, you're gonna deal with the homeless person."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Okay, I know exactly how to
Yeah.
handle this."
Yeah.
And so I'm going through it, and there was a girl who was I don't even remember her name, but she started critiquing me on how I'm handling the homeless problem. I'm
Yeah.
thinking, "How are you gonna sit here and try and critique
Yeah.
me?" I was like, I was doing this thing, and you guys have, like, 2 homeless people who might come in on the DART train every now and then from Dallas, and then they leave again. Like, you
Yeah.
guys don't have a homeless problem
Yeah.
like we did.
Yeah. Yeah, don't talk to me about the homeless problem, you don't yeah, and where I'm at now, like, I hear them talk about it, and I just kinda chuckle to myself. It's like, "Oh, all these homeless people," and it's like, "No, you got a couple of you guess a couple of homeless people, but you don't have again, like I said, you don't got a guy that's doing the Winnie the Pooh, naked from the waist down, that's, like, doing karate in the center median," and,
Dude,
yeah, like
well, if you listen to one of my the other podcast episode that I had recorded, I said one about this naked dude who was absolutely probably methed out,
mhm,
and he was out on, what was that? He was out on California, and I had gotten that call, and I was, like, right there. I was like,
mhm,
"Oh, no," and I didn't wanna have to fight this dude, but, yeah, that's like, you're running into a bunch of just always naked people, and
yeah.
that's not who you wanna fight.
There's these phases of, I call it the naked meth. So you'll I don't know if you remember, but I would always notice it would come in, like, phases where you would get a week period where there's just, like, every day there's, like, 4 or 5 calls of some naked person doing crazy stuff, and it would
Yeah.
last for a week, and then it would die down, and you wouldn't really see it for a while. It would come back, like, in 2 months, it would happen, but it would come in these phases, and my theory was that there was, like, certain strains of meth that when they would hit the street, like, it would just cause people to have the instinct to just take off their clothes and be crazy.
Probably.
But, and then that would all get smoked up, and then, like, the next batch would come through, and it would be a little more even keel meth. But I'm like, "Oh, look at the freaking naked meth just coming through town right now."
Yeah, every time, like, we'd get, like, a naked person call, it'd be like, "There's a female running around naked on this," and
Mm,
you'd always hear, "Oh, I'm en route, I'm en route, I'm en route." Dude,
mm,
trust me, every time that it's ever been a naked female, it's not the
no,
naked female you're gonna wanna see.
you don't. You do not want to see whatever's happening. You wanna avoid that if you can. Yeah.
So, before you got into law enforcement, you were in the military as well, right?
Yeah, yeah, I was, in the Marine Corps,
Okay, so how long were you in the Marine for?
4 years.
Okay, what years?
So from 2002 to 2006.
Oh, so that was like the time that kinda things were really kinda kicking off with
Yeah, I mean, this kind of the trajectory of my whole life,
poor
was
timing.
yeah, I guess. So I was a senior in high school on 9/11,
Mm,
and I had no ambition or plans of, like, joining the military at all. Like, my best friend wanted to join the Marine Corps. He was actively in, like, talks with the recruiters. He wanted to be a tanker in the Marine Corps, and, I used to make fun of him for it. Like, "You're an idiot. That's dumb." And then 9/11 happened, and I decided, I wanna go kill terrorists. And so I talked to my friend Brandon, like, "Hey, introduce me to the recruiter." And, like, the day after 9/11, we went to the recruiting office and
mhm.
talked to them. And I had, um, taken the ASVAB the year before as a junior in high school, so I already had an ASVAB score. And they were like, "Oh, I scored a 90 on the ASVAB," which is, it's a high score, and they're like, "Oh, you can do any job you wanna do." And I was like, "I wanna do the one where, you give me a gun and I shoot people with it." And
Infantry.
yeah, and so they're like, "No, but, like, you could do this other thing that's, like, not that." And because they have quotas they have to meet, so,
Sure.
like I think the minimum ASVAB score to get in is, like, 30 you have to have,
Mhm.
and then, but the average score is, like, 50. And so, if you score higher than that, like, there's certain jobs you have to score high enough to get, and they have to, like, fill those positions. And so when they get somebody who's, like, eligible for it, they're, like, really trying to push you there. I'm like, "No, no, no, I don't want that. I just wanna, like, shoot people."
Right.
And so, anyways, that was a disappointment to the recruiters, kind of a theme in life, I guess. And, I became an infantryman, as soon as I graduated high school, June of, 2002, went to boot camp in August.
Mm.
So, gotta back up. So I was 16 when 9/11 happened. My birthday's in November, so I had to wait, like, 2.5 months before I turned 17 and heck I could actually enlist. So I went to MEPS on my 17th birthday and signed my papers, and then, as soon as I there were so many people trying to get in at that time that,
Yeah.
like, they asked, "When do you wanna go to boot camp?" And I wanted to go as soon as I graduated high school 'cause they I would've just left right away, but they make you graduate before you can
Mhm.
go in. You go into the delayed entry program.
Right.
So, I had to graduate, and then the earliest ship date that they could get me after, like, June 6th of '02 was August 12th, and, that becomes, important later on. So I go to boot camp August 12th. My friend Brandon actually backed out, didn't even join the military.
Oh, he
Yeah,
straight up flaked on you? He left you
yeah,
go
yeah.
to go by yourself?
We were on the buddy program too, so we were gonna go
Oh,
together,
no way.
and, he backed out. I mean, whatever, no judgment.
What a good
But
buddy.
yeah, so I went to boot camp in, August of '06, graduated November 8th, 2000 sorry, '02, and, I was still 17 when I graduated from boot camp when I went to infantry school, and at that time, America we Afghanistan had been going on for a little over a year, and Iraq was getting ready to start. So,
Mhm.
when I graduated from School of Infantry as a rifleman, February 14th of '03, this was a this was about a month before the invasion. So they gave us our gear, and my unit, 1st Battalion, 7th Marines, was already in Kuwait with, like, half the Marine Corps getting ready to invade Iraq. And so I got sent to meet up with my unit, in Kuwait. I got there, like, March 2nd, and then we crossed the border into Iraq, March 19th.
So you were straight up part of the actual invasion.
Yeah, yeah, actually invaded Iraq during, like, the quote unquote "conventional war," which was, like, not really a conventional war. It was like, US and coalition forces, like, in a 3-week long traffic jam, and a bunch of, like, Iraqi bases and military vehicles that were just abandoned everywhere
Uh-huh.
because, like, what are they gonna do? I don't
Right.
blame them. Like,
Right, yeah, no, I that's wild though to
yeah.
see, like, that whole entire so how long did that portion kinda last? Like
It took 3 weeks to actually take the capital of Baghdad. That was,
okay.
like, less than 3 weeks. It was, like, mid-April when, we got to Baghdad, and, yeah, it was a wild time. We get to Baghdad, and then my unit went into there's a presidential compound that Saddam Hussein had, and it had 7 palaces inside this big walled compound. Each of these palaces was the biggest house I had ever seen, and there were 7 of them in this compound, and we had to clear it, and the first one we went into had been bombed out, like, they were trying to catch him in his house, so
Mhm.
they had bombed it out, but we still had to clear it. And so when I ran in there, there's like all this rubble pile or whatever, and there's this pieces of marble all over the ground. And I picked one up, and I was like, "Oh, this is cool." And I put it in my pack and I kept it. And when I was moving out here, I was going through my stuff and I found it. I was like, I still have this little piece of marble that I picked up. It's
Quite the memento,
yeah,
dude. That's a cool little
yeah,
trophy.
piece of Saddam Hussein's house. It's in my garage. Anyway, so yeah, I don't know what the point of that is, but we got to Baghdad, and we were there for maybe a week or 2, and then my unit got sent down to Najaf, which is like the holiest city, in Iraq,
Hmm,
um, and we stayed there for most of the rest of that deployment. So it was like 7-month deployment, and then came home, was home for less than a year, and then deployed again on my 2nd deployment. So August of '04, went to Al-Qaim, which is like the west end of Iraq. The Al Anbar province that everybody talks about. So Fallujah, Ramadi are the 2 big cities that everybody knows about. Nobody knows
mhm.
what Al-Qaim is. It's right on the Syrian border. So I was there for 7 months, came back, and then you most in, a Marine Corps enlistment in 4 years, you'll typically only do 2 deployments. Like in peacetime, they would go to Okinawa, or they'd go on a ship, or, or they'd go to Okinawa, and it'd be like a 6 or 7-month deployment, and then they'd come back, and they do 2 in a 4-year enlistment.
Mhm.
But I was on kind of a condensed schedule. As soon as I finished infantry school, I was on deployment, and then, so after my 2nd deployment, they were gearing up for the next deployment that my unit was gonna do, and everyone whose EAS, their end of active service, was August 1st or earlier of 2006 was not gonna deploy again, but anyone after August 1st was gonna have to deploy. And so since mine was August 11th, because I went to boot camp August 12th of '02,
Mhm.
so I missed it by 10 days. And so I had to go on a 3rd deployment, and, well, like, all of the guys that I kinda came up with that were in the same, like, group as me, because they get, like, all the new boots at the same time. So when I was a new boot in 2003, like, most of the guys that I was there with, you know, they didn't have to deploy again, and I had to deploy a 3rd time.
Right.
So
That's tough because my dad so, I mean, I joined the Air Force in 2008.
Mhm,
But I mean, my dad had been in for 29 years. When the war kicked off, I remember we were living in Northern California at the time, and he was gone. I feel like, and I could be wrong on my dates, but it just felt like forever. He
mhm,
would be gone for a year, come back for 4 or 5 months, be gone for about 7, 8 months, come back for another 3 or 4 months, be gone for another 6 months. It felt like we never saw him,
yeah,
and it was just that time period was
that's
just
crazy.
so active. But once I joined in, and I was kinda the same way. I scored pretty high on the ASVAB. I didn't score nearly as high as that, but I scored like a 70.
Mhm,
And they said, "Hey, what jobs like, what would you wanna do?" I get a big giant pick of the litter, and I said, "I wanna be security forces."
mhm,
And they said, "You wanna be a cop?" I said, "I wanna be a cop. I wanna be a
mhm,
military police." And they
yeah,
said, "But that's the bottom of the barrel. Like, that's where everybody who was doing another job and failed out of it, then they throw you into security forces."
yeah,
But I was like, "No, that's really what I wanna do." And they stationed me my first active duty station was down in Moody Air Force Base,
mhm,
South Georgia, very active, basically the military, infantry type of unit that we actually do have. And so I had my first deployment was to Iraq in 2009. So
mhm,
I went into basic July 15th, 2008, and got to my first duty station January of 2009.
mhm,
By May of 2009, we were leaving and did, I think it was 8-month deployment for that one, came back, but we were also on that same cycle where it was like 6 months gone. It's supposed to be 6 months gone, 6 months home, 6 months gone. And so a lot of these guys were already on that, and I was kinda looking forward to it.
mhm,
But then we had this huge gap. We came home in 2009, it was like November or December of 2009, had this like year and a half gap of just being home. It wasn't the 6 months, and everybody started getting stir crazy.
mhm,
But we were able to do the second deployment, came back from that one. I got orders to Lackland to go teach at the tech school, and I waited, and I was like, "Well, we're going to Afghanistan." I said, "It's perfect timing because my report no later than that date was until, like, much further down." I think it was, like, June or something of, 2012, and I said, "I can go on this deployment, and then I'll come back, and once I come back, then I'll ship off." And they said, "No, it's too close." So they actually kicked me off of the deployment, and I was like,
mhm.
"Man, I would have liked trying to, go out and see a different country."
Yeah, go to another country. Yeah, it's one of the things, 'cause I was in the Marines, which the word suggests that there's some water, but never saw a boat anywhere. I was stationed in 29 Palms, which for those who don't know, that's like an hour east of Palm Springs in the Mojave Desert.
Right.
No water there, and then I had 3 deployments to Iraq, and there's not really any much water there either, so never got on a boat, like, not one single time. Like, we just did but we'd take a commercial airliner there, and, they'd fly us there, we'd do our deployment, and fly us back.
I'm sure with the invasion of Iraq, you guys were heavily armed, well equipped, had all the gear you ever could possibly need.
You know what's funny is I've been around so long at this point that I've seen the development of, like, all this military and police technology. My first issued rifle was an M16A2 with iron sights, and had been, cleaned so much that all, like, the bluing was off it, so the barrel was, like, silver,
It was
and
perfect.
yeah, it was perfect, and I had taped a Maglite, one of those little black Maglites with the 2 AA batteries. I taped it to the fore end with electrical tape, of course, as, like, my gun light, and
Hey,
that was just the what everybody had,
yeah,
and then now it's, like, generations of, like, the way rifles are built now and, crazy stuff that the technology that exists just, 20 what, probably 23 years later.
yeah. So after your 4 year enlistment, you ended up getting out, but you didn't think about staying in?
Oh, no.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
No, no, no. I never really, had a plan, I guess you could say, for life in general. I
Mhm.
just was like, "Oh, I wanna fight terrorists," and, they were like, "Oh, they hate us for our freedom," and all this other bullshit. It's like, "Oh, Saddam has a connection to Al Qaeda," which, also bullshit. So one of these are we allowed to cuss on here?
Yeah, yeah, you can.
One of these stupid fucking deployments, and and, I I didn't really have any kind of plan, no. So, but I met my wife who, between my 2nd and 3rd deployment, and my kinda I guess the closest thing I had to a plan at that point was I was gonna get out of the Marine Corps, and then I would run into these contractors when we were on deployments, guys that were making, like, six-figure salaries, which is a really big deal in, like, 2004, 2005, and
Right.
they're not paying taxes on it because they're overseas
Mhm.
and they're working 3 to 6 months out of the year. I'm like, "That sounds cool," and they're doing this very similar job to what we're doing, only they get, like, treated well, and they eat well, and, like, they have, mostly better equipment, and they make a lot more money. I'm like, "Well, I could just go do that," you know? So that was I wanted to get into one of these private contracting jobs, and that was kinda my plan. And then I met my wife and, realized, like, okay, maybe I shouldn't just, like, go to Iraq as, like, a profession anymore. I
Sure.
should do something else, like, productive and or not productive, but, like, have a family.
Yeah,
And so I decided, "Okay, I gotta get out, I gotta do something." So originally, I applied for the border patrol, and I tested for them, and I went through the kind of the background process, and then ended up changing my mind, decided I wanted to do border patrol, and I would just apply at the police department in my hometown where we lived, and so I applied and got hired there, and I didn't have any ambition or goal to be in the military, and then I didn't have any ambition or goal to be in law enforcement either. It's
really.
most people are like, "Oh, it was a calling," and for me, I was like, "Well, I don't have this job anymore, and I need another job, and I have like girlfriend and a kid I have to take care of." And so I need a job, and so what kind of skills do I have? Like, I can shoot, fairly fit or whatever, and I'm good at, like, small unit tactics, like, maybe the police department will hire me.
Yeah.
And and so I went in, and, like, I had no idea what cops even did. My only interaction I ever had with police was getting pulled over for, you know, just going 100 miles an hour on 58 in and out of Bakersfield, and so I didn't know what they did. I know that they, write people tickets for speeding.
Yeah.
So I remember, like, doing scenarios in the academy, and I would have no clue. You, like, contact a guy who's, like, a suspicious person or whatever, and I'm like, "Oh, they want you to leave." They're like, "Can you leave?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'll leave," and they just leave, and like, "Alright, you failed that scenario," and I'm like it's like so anyways, I had no idea what policing was about, and, but then once I got into it, like, I was like, "Oh, this is actually really fun." Like, cops don't really, not all cops just write tickets to people for speeding, you know?
I feel like actually most of them don't.
Most of them don't, yeah.
I think that the ones that you kinda don't really wanna
Yeah.
hang out with are the ones who are just absolute sticklers. Now, maybe not. I'm sure there's some real great traffic cops out there
Yeah, no,
who
I don't
absolutely love it, but
I have much respect for traffic cops. I never worked in traffic, like, s for so I went to the academy in 2007, so I've been a cop for, 18 and a half years.
mhm,
The last time I wrote a ticket was in 2010. This is,
right.
like, 16 years ago. The last time I worked a DUI was in 2008. So 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 there's, like, a lot of other things that you can do, like, that's all I knew. I knew that people got DUIs and they got tickets, but
See, that's the hardest part when I moved up here and I started working for Plano. Plano doesn't have well, they have a traffic division, but the traffic officers are not the ones who handle your
tickets
DWIs, everything.
or crashes.
No, nope. I gotta do my own freaking maps and everything.
Yeah.
But I remember when I first got here and we're sitting here doing the scenarios, And I've been doing this, like, I've been crushing the scenarios, no problem, and then it's like, "Hey, we're gonna be doing the DWI thing. You have to do the proper, field sobriety test, everything." And dude, I had so much anxiety
Mhm.
because I thought, "This is something I don't know, and it's embarrassing that I don't know it because 'cause I've been an officer at that time, I think, for almost 6 years,
Yeah.
and to go in and just be like, "I have no idea," and then it transferred. It transferred and gave me so much anxiety because once I got out of the academy, I passed that portion of the scenario, I was able to get through it, but I hadn't done it in so long after getting out, and then all of a sudden I came on to FTO, which mine was accelerated because I was doing really well with it. Great, they put me out on my own. I didn't do a single
Mhm.
DWI for, like, almost a year and a half,
Oh, yeah.
and then it started giving me real bad anxiety because I'm thinking I'm going in every day going, I've been here now for a while. I haven't done one in so long. I don't know what I'm doing,
Yeah,
and
I'm
I
gonna
started getting embarrassed.
yeah, you're gonna catch one and you're not gonna know what you're doing and you're gonna feel like you look dumb or whatever. And
Right.
I just kinda own the fact that I'm dumb. Like, "Yeah, guys, I don't know what I'm doing. I need your help." Like,
Well, see, I think then you're getting ahead and laying out the groundwork for that is fine. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Because 'Cause they're probably going, "How does this guy not know how to do that?"
right.
But realistically, I guarantee most people when they're on a call and you show up on the call afterwards, they go, "Oh, thank God he's here."
That's funny. You know, yeah, when it so yeah, I haven't worked that side of it and, but no, I get tons of respect for those guys, and if you think about it, the thing that everyone has in common is, like, traffic accidents, and I never wanted to work it. One of the reasons is because 'cause they're just horrendous when on a bad crash, like, what
Mhm.
happens to a person when they get in a terrible crash,
Oh, yeah.
and they're random. And so I worked a lot of violent crime, and the thing about violent crime, this isn't true in every single case, but like if rarely are you the victim of a violent crime if you're just carrying on with a normal like lifestyle.
Right.
Like you're usually engaged in a again, not every single time, but most of the time these like a shooting or a stabbing happens, the person who was shot or stabbed was doing something that like your normal everyday person is not doing.
Right.
And I'm not taking away, like, trying to victim shame or say that they deserve it. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying, like, I'm not worried that I'm gonna be the victim of a shooting or a stabbing in the normal course of my, like, everyday like, life. However, I'm terrified that, like, me or a family member is gonna get in some terrible car crash because
Right.
that's something that can happen to anybody,
Oh, yeah. How
you
many
know?
times have you just seen some old person who was just driving down the road
Yeah.
and absolutely gets T-boned at an
Just
intersection, you never saw it coming?
yeah, you just get obliterated. And that's what I think about, like, with my kids, you know, my oldest daughter. It's like, I don't, worry about her becoming the victim of a violent crime,
Mhm.
you know, but I'm terrified she's gonna get a car crash,
Sure.
you know?
And I think actually when I first got on with Bakersfield, I was riding a motorcycle
Mhm,
because I was going through I had just been through like kind of a bad divorce and I thought this will be cool, kind of give me the freedom back. And I remember I'm riding it during the academy and everybody's like, you shouldn't be riding that. Like if you're gonna get hurt on that and you're gonna jeopardize your career. I was like, I'm not. And I didn't. But then once I came on and I started seeing the motorcycle fatalities,
mhm.
I was like, "Oh, man, I can't.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
not gonna ride this no more." My dad was still riding, and I was like, "Please." And he was just a shit magnet
Mhm,
for like, he'd be driving fine. We get a protected left-hand turn, arrows pointed. He starts going, then all of a sudden, 2 people blow through the intersection,
mhm,
and they were sitting there stopped, and it's like right when they saw him going, they just took off
mhm.
like they were gonna race each other, and I'm just like, "Dad, please sell this motorcycle," and once he did, man, I felt so relieved just because, like I said, they're bad.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I never wanted to ride a motor, at work or work traffic, and I have got a ton of respect for those guys because, like I said, that can happen to anybody, and, like, reducing traffic accidents and fatalities is something that's actually really important to me as just like a normal guy
Yeah,
who's probably not gonna get shot or stabbed just in everyday life. You know, it's very important to me that, like, you know, we make the roads safer. So,
sure.
mad respect for traffic guys. No sort of shade, by saying I never worked, just never it's just like an assignment that I never had.
Yeah, so what assignment are you in right now? Are you
Well, so now, you know, that I'm out here in Texas, I went you know, having a ton of, time on where I came from, to being the newest, new guy. I'm in field training now, in my current department. So
Oh, really?
I work at a police department up in, north of Dallas in the DFW area, and, I had to go through like a 9-week long you went to a BPOC because
Right.
you're patient 0. We were talking about that before we started recording. I'm like the 11th or 12th guy from Bakersfield PD to come out here, and, they've streamlined the process since then. So I went to, like, a 9-week long supplemental police officers course, which is just, like, all online classes. I'm just
Mhm.
sitting in a classroom, and then a 9-week long, sort of in-service training, where I get more specifics on department policy and some firearm stuff and tactics, and then and then I just started field training 2 weeks ago. So I'm on FTO, and, that's I think it's a 14-week long program,
Really?
and so when I finish that, then I'll be on my own as a patrol officer on the street.
So are they gonna probably put you back onto nights again?
There's a good chance. That's where most of the new guys in any department end up on nights.
Right.
That's kind of the typical spot for you when you're a new guy.
That was probably one of the hardest transfers that we had coming back. Cause man, I was working, and I can't even remember which shifts it was, but I was working essentially the daytime for the
Mhm,
most part, and then I had that kinda mid shift that got off at 11 PM.
mhm,
But I didn't have to be on nights, and once I came out here with the kids starting in school and my wife started working, it was so hard to kinda go and make that shift back, but I
mhm.
had the most fun with it. That crew was the best crew that I could have had in
Yep.
Plano. There was, I would say, the most action probably still going on without as much oversight, and so it was nice, but it was very hard to get back to that shift adjustment.
Mm,
And, in Bakersfield, when you're working those 4 on, 3 off, even if you're working nights, you had 3 days to kinda recoup, where here in Plano, it was alternating. So you get every other weekend off, which is great to have every other weekend off, but it constantly was flipping the schedule around, and it was just really hard
mm.
to kinda get used to that
Uh,
actual momentum.
how old were you when you started, in Plano?
Let's see, so it was in 2020. I had to have been
Mm.
32?
Yeah, not that 32 is old. I'm 41 now, so, um, but as you get older, like, the ability to, like, function on, like, a night shift schedule just deteriorates. When I was 25, it's like, I don't need to sleep. I'll just whatever,
Right.
I'll just sleep upright in a chair somewhere for a few hours and be fine. But then now, like, at 41, it's like, oh, like, it's a lot harder to adjust for
Well
sure.
well, we had it, and there's a whole lot more downtime here in the North Texas area
Mhm.
than we're gonna ever have in Bakersfield. I'd come on and there'd be 40 calls that have been holding, some of them for, 48 hours.
Yep.
And so there was really not a whole lot of that downtime. Well, here, man, we used to get together, it would be 2 o'clock in the morning, that's Celsius hour. We're all going into the gas station, we're gonna crack a couple Celsius, we're
Yeah.
hanging out for 45 minutes to an hour because there's just not a whole lot going on
Yeah.
at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning,
Yeah.
unless it was a single vehicle crash, and we all know what that would end up entailing is a DWI, and I'm like, "Oh, I don't wanna do that. Please
Yeah.
don't crash in my sector."
That's funny. Yeah, no, when I was going through my background here, they asked, like, what do you ask about my job that I had at that time, my current job at the time, and I would, explaining at that time I was working as the supervisor for the violent criminal apprehension team. And I'm like, yeah, we get about 50 homicides a year, and my unit tracks down the people that committed the violent crime and bring them in. And the one of the background investigator guys looks at me and he's like, "That's like 1 a week." I'm like, "Yeah, pretty much." He's like, "We get maybe 4 in a year."
It's a wild
Yeah.
swing difference, yeah. Because I was thinking the same thing. I think Plano had, like, 3 homicides a year or something like
Yeah.
that.
And they're all, domestics or, like, where they're not complicated, like, you know who did it,
Right.
and, like, they're right there still, they get caught right away or, whatever. It's not like, gang members shooting and killing each other or, there's not as many whodunits.
Yeah. Working in that VCAT spot, though, that was probably super exciting.
It was a good time, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was cop Bakersfield for 18 years. Um, I worked, patrol like everybody else. I worked the gang unit as an officer for 3 years. When I was in the gang unit from, like, 2010 to 2013, I got on the SWAT team in 2011, and, like most SWAT teams, for smaller mid-sized agencies, we're a collateral duty team, so
Mhm.
part-time, not a full-time team, and I was on that team for 15 years. I was a started as an assaulter, then I was a sniper for 7 years, and then when I promoted to sergeant, I was a team leader for the last, like, 6 years.
Oh, really?
But, so I was a gang unit officer, then I was a range master for a couple of years. I was an academy recruit training officer, so I wore the silly hat and yelled at recruits. And then I was also, in VCAT as a senior officer, was like a corporal. I did that for like a year and a half, and then, went back to the academy, promoted at the academy, became a patrol sergeant in February of 2020. I was a patrol sergeant for 4 years, and then my last year, I was the supervisor for VCAT.
Hmm.
Um, I also did a year as an IA investigator.
So you've done everything there. You might as well just be the chief of police at
No,
that
no,
point.
no, that's not, yeah, nothing I'd ever wanna do is like an admin position. No, I wasn't really interested in, like, promoting or, like, moving my career forward. I would kinda get kicked along by my wife at certain points where she's like, "You're being a child." Like, I used to call it Peter Panning. Like, I would just like, "Oh, that looks like a fun thing. I'm gonna go do that." And then it's like, "Oh, this would be fun to go chase gang members." And then it's like, "Oh, it'd be fun to be on the SWAT team, and it'd be fun to be at a range and shoot guns all the time." And she's like, "No, you should, like, try to take on a position that pays more money so that you can make more money for your family and stop being a child." I'm like, "Oh, yeah, yeah, you're
So
probably right."
out of all
So,
of the things that you did in Bakersfield, what was your favorite position then?
my last one, yeah, so I was the when I was the sergeant in charge of VCAT was the best assignment I had.
Hmm.
Um, so VCAT is, the SWAT team is a collateral duty team. There's 32, operators on the team, and they select 6 officers and a sergeant from the SWAT team. They work in sort of like the full-time element of the SWAT team, and the job is to track down people wanted for violent crimes, shootings and stabbings. Is a primary duty, and it's a plainclothes unit, so you don't wear a uniform, and it's got a really good schedule. It's a good and a bad schedule. Like the regular schedule is Monday through Thursday, day shift schedule, but and it's real loose too. So like if you got to come in a little late or leave a little early or you got to take care of something, nobody really cares. But the trade-off, because there's no solutions, there's only trade-offs. The trade-off is that like when the phone rings at 2 a.m. on Saturday, like you're coming to work,
Yeah,
you know, and and so there's, like, a level of commitment. You work a whole bunch, but you have a real flexible schedule, and,
gotcha.
um, and if you can manage that with your personal life, then it's great, but it can create conflicts if you're just like, "Oh, sorry, honey, I gotta take off and go to work again," that
That's kinda how real estate is for me right now too. It's
Oh, I
it's
bet.
the same exact thing, like, "Hey, we had plans." "Oh, I just got a call," like,
Yeah.
"Hey, I know we were gonna go to lunch. I gotta show this thing first, and
Mhm.
then maybe we can meet up afterwards," but I she ends up understanding, but it's the
Yeah,
same
it's
thing.
tough. That's tough, yeah.
Yours is a lot more stressful.
When you're s well, I mean, just being subject to the phone ringing at any time and having to, like, drop what you're doing is, like, not great.
Yeah,
Um, but the upside is that, like, when the phone it never rings because they want you to do something boring.
mhm.
When the phone rings at 2 a.m., it's like something really sketchy is about to go down and, like, and it's gonna be exciting and it's gonna be fun, like, so I never, like, got called out at 2 a.m. and then didn't have fun.
That is true. I feel like that would be, like, the most exciting part
Mhm.
because you actually are kinda hoping that your phone, in a way, will ring. Maybe not when you really don't want it to, but for the most part, if I got a call at 2 AM and that was a situation,
Mhm.
I'm gonna be awake.
Yeah.
It's gonna spike your interest, you know?
Yeah, so it's a good time. Just, tracking people down that are wanted for violent crime and the I guess what I was getting at earlier is that the guys in that unit were all very talented. So they're all like very self-motivated, hard chargers. Like you don't just get in, you have to be really good at your primary duty before you can even be considered for a position like
Mhm.
that. So like if you're supervising a regular patrol shift, you have like a whole spectrum. You got your like slow, kind of lazy people at one end, you get your hard chargers at the other end, and you have like, that kind of the average like middle ground group or whatever. But
Yeah.
you have all kinds of different levels that you're dealing with.
Right.
Whereas like in VCAT, like they're all high performers. Like every single person in there is like really good at their job and really motivated to do it. And so when you're supervising a unit like that, it's like it sounds like the mission sounds kind of sketchy because you're constantly chasing murderers and like people that are going to be armed and they're like really not want to go to prison for the rest of their life. So that sounds kind of sketchy. But you're working with people that are like at the peak of peak performers,
Right.
and so it's actually kinda easy because you don't have to, like, slow down for the slow guy or, like, make sure that this person's, like, caught up or, like, "I really gotta keep an eye on that guy because you never know what he's gonna do."
Sure.
You don't really have any of that.
And even just that the confidence in the people that are around you, like your backup, is gonna be a good backup partner.
Mhm.
Because there's times that, like, if you're responding to, priority one situation. You show up and all of a sudden your backup is coming and then your backup shows up and you're like, "Oh god,
"Oh,
I
not
wish
that
could
one?"
be anybody else on the
Yeah,
way."
yeah,
Like, cause now like, are we about to get in a fight and it's really just gonna be me getting in a fight
yeah.
until other people show up? It was
Or they're just gonna make it worse.
yeah.
They're gonna say or do something that's gonna cause this problem to spiral. Yeah, yeah,
Right,
no,
exactly. So,
exactly.
well, so you've been in for you said 18 years now, right?
Yeah,
And how many more years do you think you're gonna go with it?
that's a good question. So I can retire. I'm 41. I can retire from California when I turn 50. And then there's a different retirement system out here. So,
Yeah.
I got a lot of miles on this frame. So how long I want to continue to push a black and white for, I don't know.
Yeah.
If I find something else that interests me, I'm kind of open to whatever. If I can find something else that's, pays the bills and is interesting, I'm open to it. But
Have you ever given it any thought kind of, what you might do afterwards? Because I mean, this is all we all kinda
this,
know.
this is the only thing, yeah, the only job I've ever done. I've only ever like, you know, carried a gun for the government.
Mhm.
It's like, so, um, no, I should maybe think about it a little bit better. But just we're still in the process of moving, so I got a lot.
Yeah, I mean, you got a lot on your plate, and you got, plenty of years down the road
Yeah.
that you get the time to think about. I feel like, I mean, with the firearm instructor position that you've had before, with all of the obviously the training that you've had,
Mhm.
I feel like you'd open up a gun range and do the training there, and it might
Yeah.
not be so bad.
Something like that could be fun, yeah, but I think maybe if there's an opportunity. One thing I kinda respect about you is that you were in the career and then you got out and found something else and were able to be successful, like, doing a different thing, and so many people stick around because, like, they don't really wanna be there anymore, but they just have no other option, and, like, eh, I
I can get like, I get behind that too. It is like, sometimes you get trapped
yeah,
and the pay is good,
mhm,
the benefits can be good, and it's hard to leave the security of that
yeah,
because you know that the government's gonna pay.
yep,
I'm not gonna have to worry about not getting a paycheck unless you're in the military nowadays. It seems like they're constantly getting furloughed for or not furloughed, but, the government shutdowns, and all of a sudden
shutdowns,
it's
yeah,
like, "Hey, are we gonna get paid this month?" Who knows?
yeah,
But for the most part, it's a pretty secure position.
yeah,
I mean, I only found real estate because of law enforcement,
mhm,
and in my time off after my incident, I was just sitting at home and I'm like looking on my phone and got into residential or to got into flipping. We got into flipping real estate, but it was wholesaling at first. I was just kind of looking at that, and I think that's the only reason that I was able to kind of shift and transition out. But man, there was a lot of people who just they doubted it.
yeah,
They doubted I'd be good at it.
oh, yeah,
So
yeah, no, that's, so, yeah, it's hard to leave I call it safety. It's like, "Oh, this is a safe job." And what I mean is, like, it's a job security.
yeah,
As long as you don't do something, like, super heinous and, you're gonna always, have a job there. So I'm kinda looking around, keeping options open, but for right now, it's really good for me and good for the family, and I'm happy where I am.
right. Yeah, and I think you guys are really gonna like it up here.
Mhm.
The pace is different. It's
Yeah,
it's a lot slower. I will admit I thought the pace being slower was gonna be much better for me. I ended up not really liking it as much. Obviously, now I'm not in law enforcement anymore,
yeah,
but the other departments, I've heard that have had a lot more leeway, to kinda chase after the bad guys,
mhm.
and I mean,
Well, they
it'll be
asked me that
fun.
too when I first came out, like, oh, then when I was talking about, 50 homicides a year, they're like, "This is not that kind of place. Like,
Mhm,
are you gonna be able to adjust to, like, handling different types of calls where if the old lady calls and, needs help changing your light bulb, like, are you gonna be able to handle something like that and not, like, we're not just chasing murderers all the time." I'm like, I'm 41 years old, like, I'm okay with I'm ready to kinda slow things down, and that's also part of the j getting away from the chaos and the getting my family out of California was a big part of it, but I think that it was starting to wear on me, just living that fast-paced lifestyle was
mhm,
really having other negative effects,
sure.
and so, I told them in my background, like, I'm not gonna be some slug who lays around and does nothing, like, if you need work done, totally cool to work, but I'm really looking forward to the opportunity to not be required to be constantly trying to find that, that guy who did that shooting or that did that stabbing.
Yeah, but do you think that all the boys are gonna get back together on the same shift and you're gonna be like, "Alright, guys, we gotta we're gonna have to prove something here." Like, I feel like that's what would happen.
Yeah, yeah. It is hard to turn it off.
Yeah,
It's true because it's fun, it's exciting, and, like, and, you never is that like that old Hemingway quote, "There's no hunting like the hunting of man." Those who've hunted our men long enough and like it never care for anything thereafter.
yeah,
That's true. Like, you just get into it and you're just like, "This is like there's nothing as exciting or as fun as this."
yeah,
But I'm trying to be practical and realize, like, you can't just run at that pace for forever. You
for
gotta
sure.
you gotta you gotta make some changes.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a long career, and a lot of people, I feel like, burn out early because they are trying to do too much too fast. They're constantly picking up the overtime shifts and realize that, yeah, you ain't young forever, and it will wear you down. Like, I feel like I got worn out, but, even now I wasn't doing the
Mm,
amount of overtime shifts that some of these guys are doing. It's crazy.
yeah. No, I've experienced that. I've had ups and downs, after I was a gang unit officer for 3 years, and I got out of the gang unit. I had been a cop for 5 years, and I was just so burnt out. I wanted like, if I we talk about the security or whatever, if I could quit then and do something else, I would have.
Mhm.
But I was at that point where, there's nothing I don't have any other skills. I have nothing that can pay the same salary that I'm making now and have the same security, so I just kinda had to stay there, and I needed to make a change, so I went from working the gang unit in Bakersfield to moving, to the day shift on the west side of Bakersfield, which is, like, the nicer part of town.
Okay.
And I did that because I just needed to get away,
Sure.
and I did that for 6 months. I worked a 6-month shift over there, and it was a really nice to sort of decompress,
Yeah.
and, like, it's like you're driving around out there and people pull up and they, like, wave to you with all 5 fingers, and they're like, "Oh, thank you for your service," and it's a whole lot different than working in the hood,
They might
and
actually buy you lunch or
yeah,
something. Like, you
yeah,
never know.
yeah.
Maybe not quite that much. I don't know.
I
Bakersfield's kinda still changed.
Oh, I would have these experiences all the time where I'd be driving around and someone would pull up and they like, be signaling me to, like, roll the window down or whatever, and I would think, "What do they want?" And so I roll the window down, I'm like, "Yes," and they're like, "Oh, just thank you for your service," and I'm like, "Oh, I'm a freaking asshole," like
Oh, that's funny, dude.
Yeah.
I had it one time where I was in the Northwest, and my car I drove the oldest Crown Vic that
Oh,
we
yeah.
had, and I called her, I don't remember her. I called her Gladys. I
Mhm.
was like, "Man, I'm driving Gladys." Well, I'm pulled up behind this person, and I'm sitting at a red light. Out of nowhere, I'm not touching any buttons, nothing. The air horn, it gets like it melted and got
Mhm.
stuck in the
Oh, yeah.
on position, and it's just, "Honk," at the person in front of me, and they're, like, trying to get out of the way. I'm like, "No," and I don't know what do I do? I'm hitting the button like 1,000
Yeah,
times, this thing's not turning off,
that's
and then all of a sudden, they're like, "What?" And they're, like, getting out the window, like, yelling at me. I'm like, "Ah, I'm sorry, like, I don't know I don't know what's going on here." And I felt like such an idiot, and all of a sudden, they pulled off to the side, and I kept going, and all of a sudden, my air horn turns off. I was
yeah,
like, "God, I look like a jackass
yeah,
right
yeah,
now."
like you're just air horn for no reason. Yeah, yeah.
So you were doing the podcasting, though, too, and you guys put out quite a bit of episodes for
Mhm.
Badges, Bullets, and Blunders, right?
Yeah, yeah, so I got the idea for that, I started doing some writing back in, I don't probably 2022, 2023, just different things that were bothering me. I would get I would get like ideas in my head and it helps me to write things down to kind of process thoughts and like to sharpen my ideas. And so I started writing like articles for the local newspaper, and then I started a Substack and I was writing on Substack for a little while and just putting thoughts out there, and then I got the idea to for the podcast. I wanted to do something. I wanted to. You know how it is when you work in a policing job. You encounter some personalities of people that are like the funniest people that you ever encounter,
Right.
and they have these situations that happen that seem kind of messed up on the outside, but when you're interacting with the people at work that are on the inside, that are like hilarious.
Yeah.
And I thought like if I could kind of bottle that up and like the and put it out there for the public, like people would enjoy this. And so the idea was I wanted to have like funny stories about like law enforcement related situations that happen, like talking to people about the funny stuff that happens in their work. And that's how the podcast started. So we were mainly focused on doing just funny stories,
Yeah.
funny cop stories. And we put that out like that for a while. And then Chris Bagby, he came on, and when he came to sit down, and he was like, "Oh, I'm not gonna tell any stories." And I was like, "Okay, well, what do you wanna talk about?" And he's like, "Oh, I wanna talk about, quality assurance and, like, processes and what he did in his assignment." And I'm like, "Okay, let's talk about that." And so it sounds like super boring, but like we went off like 2.5 hours. And it was like the most interesting like conversation I had up to that point. I was like, "Wow, this is really good." And so then we started doing more serious topics, not like serious, but just instead of just like coming in and telling about like how you got that homeless person shit on you, like we would talk about like other things.
Yeah.
And from there, I started doing some video breakdowns also once I got out here to Texas, where you see like some critical incident, some police related shooting or something like that on the internet, and then break down the video and explain, my opinions on whatever it is. And
Oh, right
so I've
on.
been putting those out too.
So, what would that be called? How would people find that?
So the podcast, it's all on my, we have YouTube, we have Spotify, Apple Podcast, it's on Rumble. That's where all the podcast episodes are on. We have a TikTok and Instagram, uh, and it's Badges, Bullets, and Blunders is the name of the channel.
Right
So
on.
yeah.
Yeah. So, so you plan to get that kind of back up and going just by yourself now, or
Yeah, so when I was out there, the guy who's producing it, Nick, we recorded at his house, and we would do all in-person interviews like this for the most part. We did a couple of remote ones, but for the most part they were in person, 'cause I think it's just better to actually sit across from someone and talk to them than
yeah,
try to do it like through a screen.
sure.
You can do it, but it's just not as good. And then now that I'm out here, I haven't recorded any podcast episodes. I have all the stuff and I want to get it set up, but I've been um, moving, buying a house, living in like a couple of different houses. I'm kind of homeless right now. We're remodeling the house we just
You're
bought.
transient. It's all good.
Yeah, transient. I'm not doing any naked karate. Yeah, the word homeless doesn't really do it justice. Yeah, but once I get set up, I'm going to start recording actual episodes again with the guests and all that. So
Right on. Well, man, I appreciate you coming out, and I know it wasn't exactly the a close drive, so thanks for coming out, though, man. You're kind of one of the motivating factors when we started doing this because well, I went over to a buddy's house and him and I recorded his for one of the episodes for his podcast. I had just such a fun time with
mhm,
it, but I started really listening to yours before that even happened. I said, man, it seems like such a fun thing to do.
yeah,
So kind of you're one of the motivations that caused
oh,
this whole thing to start.
awesome.
And that's why I was like, "Yeah, I need your advice on this."
Yeah.
But I mean, it's cool. It's kinda
Uh,
cool to see it evolve.
You
So,
got yeah, you got a great setup. You're well surpassed our, our podcast and what we got going on, so, this is awesome.
well, again, thanks, man, for coming out. And if you ever end up coming out back out this way, maybe I have a couple of the other guys from Bakersfield come out,
Mhm.
and we'll do like 4 people on here, and we'll just kind of share some of the old stories
Yeah,
and funny stories that kind of cropped up
yeah,
and
that'd
were
be a good
different.
time. Yeah, thank you for having me.
All right, buddy. Well, thanks again. We'll see you next time.